All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dent Man podcast. Man, I don't even know what episode I am on. 100? I don't know. We'll see. I lost count. But man, today I'm actually super excited because I just got back from Daikin DSO 2025. It was fun. Got to network, talked to a lot of industry partners. It's exciting where dentistry going to. So shout out to Daikin. But today I have Mr. Kyle Wheeler. Kyle is with Carr Agency. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Carr
Yep.
Realty.
Carr Realty. Sorry. Yeah. So Kyle is very interesting individual. He is in a very interesting space that I'm super excited to ask a lot of questions, learn about. All right, Kyle. Well, I'm not gonna do too much of talking. I'll let you introduce yourself, man. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. My name's Kyle Wheeler. I'm a commercial real estate agent here in Michigan with Carr Realty. Super integrated within the dental community. I exclusively represent buyers and tenants. I'm in the healthcare community, and a large portion of my business is dentistry. So, super thankful for the opportunity to share the word and spread some information for opportunities to help grow your practices.
That's awesome, Kyle. I know we were on the phone before and we were talking about really what you do. The one thing that fascinates me about what you guys do is the fact that you guys are there to help the dentists out to really get the best deal possible for them. How did you come up with this model? Because it's such a fascinating thing. I just really want to
Yeah,
know
that's a
what that
great
process
question.
is like. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's a really great question. So Carr started with Colin Carr, hence the name in Denver, and he worked for multiple of the globally traded firms, Colliers, Cushman Wakefield, and others, and quickly found that dentistry was a really unrepresented community. These doctors were going into their real estate negotiations, whether it was a lease or a purchase or a lease renewal, unrepresented, and unfortunately leaving a lot of money on the line. So took it upon himself to create his own thing. Carr Realty came to life, and um, we decided, exclusively to work on healthcare business. So again, dentistry being a large portion of that, but then also exclusively representing buyers and tenants. Full service brokerage is extremely common in this industry. There's a lot of firms out there that represent both sellers and landlords and buyers and tenants, but in doing so, there's no way to have a true fiduciary responsibility. You can't look out for the best interests of both parties at the same time. So we've decided to level the playing field and only represent one side of the deal, being the doctor exclusively. And that just positions us to achieve most favorable terms in both lease and purchase scenarios to maximize the profitability of the practice.
That's amazing. So, Carl, the one thing I want to know is, if a doctor wants to either rent a property or they want to purchase the property, at what step or at what stage do you guys kind of come in to help guide them through that? And what are some of the feedbacks that you guys been getting from the doctors, or what are some of the ways that you guys kind of help the doctor navigate that process?
Yeah. Honestly, whether it's a associate that's looking to start up their practice all the way until, their exit strategy, we're there to help facilitate opportunity and bring together the right team to get the deal done. For us, getting involved sooner is better. Commercial real estate is extremely different than residential real estate. Residential is pretty cut and dry. You offer on one house at a time. The offer either gets accepted or it doesn't. There might be a little bit of negotiation there, but it's pretty straightforward and simple. Commercial real estate is the complete opposite. It's the Wild West. It's all about time and options. The more time you have, the more options there are that are feasible. And the more options that you have, the more landlords you have competing against each other or sellers, which is creating competition and driving concessions and um, you know, money back into the practice. So as far as the process of us getting involved, on average between negotiation, legal due diligence, closing, construction, more than likely, because it's difficult to find second gen dental space, we ideally have a solid 18 to 24 months in advance of your next real estate move to plan and create a strategy to make sure that we're hitting that timeline for your expectations.
And do you guys that's very interesting. Do you help like any kind of like de novo practices, or do you guys mainly like focus on the existing practice and just kind of helping the other doctor transition out? Or how does that part of it work?
Yeah, we do both. So we work with both private practice clinics and then also have some pretty awesome partnerships with regional and nationwide DSOs. So if it's a one doctor practice that is in a lease space and is looking to buy a building now, that's right up our alley, all the way to the large DSOs with multiple locations across multiple states. We actually have a national accounts program where a DSO can partner with Carr, and we have agents in all 50 states in all large markets. So that then they can be doing different real estate transactions across the board and have a brokerage that understands their business. And they actually only have one point of contact that's kind of quarterbacking all of those scenarios across all states. It's very helpful for those larger groups because, it's so easy to work with XYZ brokerage in Nashville and then ABC brokerage in Detroit. And you're having to re-explain every single time, like, this is who we are, this is the type of thing that we like and how we'd like to do deals. Whereas if you just work with Carr, we understand that from our first meeting. And then it's like, hey, we're looking to do it in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Perfect. I got the person there for you. I'll fill them in on everything that they need to know to save you time so you can focus on what's important to you, which is your clinical work, and we'll get it taken care of.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it's kind of like you don't have to worry about talking to 1,000 different people and get 1,000 different information. It's all kind of like a chain effect. You guys are all involved and hands on. That's awesome. I was actually reading because the one thing that I was so fascinated about you guys is that in some of the cases, you guys, save some dentists up to, 20-30% on the real estate cost. Can you kind of like walk us through what type of negotiation strategy, where are your negotiation strategies you make that substantial difference in the financial strategy for that dentist? Is that like the location of it? Is that because, for example, like I am a general dentist, I can go talk to Mr. Sam and say, hey, I want to rent your space and essentially rent this space out, right? But if I bring Carr in, they can help me save that 20-30%. So what is the difference? What is the strategy essentially that makes this such a big difference in that saving for the dentist?
Yeah. Great question. It's all about slowing down and really evaluating what's available on the market. We might tour, I might send you a list of 15 properties. Ideally, we're making a short list of 5 to 7 that we're going to go tour. And then out of those 5 to 7, I'm going to encourage my client to pick 2 or 3 that would be feasible. They might have a top option, and that's completely fine. But in order to get concessions, we need to make these landlords or sellers that we're negotiating with think that we have other options. And ideally, we actually do, so that if we're negotiating on our ideal property and something falls through, we've already got deals working in the background on option 2 and 3. And then, to that point, landlords love dentists in their buildings. Dentists are a blue chip tenant. The default rate of a dental office is extremely low. You talk to any of the practice finance lenders, and they'll tell you that the rate that a dentist defaults is less than 1%. And oftentimes that isn't necessarily even due to the business. So they're a great tenant to have. And when landlords know that they have the potential to sign a dentist up in their building, typically on a 7, 10, 12-year lease with a couple of renewal options because it's not ideal to move, they understand the opportunity that they have in hand. And when you get them competing against each other, they really want that deal. And they're going to get competitive in order to do it. And it truly is all about options. So, there's obviously certain communities, rural areas, state markets where there might not be a ton of options. But that's where it's our job to create the right posture in those negotiations to paint the picture to the landlord that there is a deal elsewhere. So if you want to do a deal here, you're going to have to sharpen your pencil and give us terms that we're looking for.
That is amazing. So the next thing I want to know, and this is something that I kind of just really want to know from what type of strategy do you guys use when it comes to kind of like guiding the dentist to saying, hey, like from like when you want to choose a particular spot or the real estate for the dentist to kind of take over or rent or buy, as far as like what the strategy do you guys use for like site selection? Do you look at the demographic data? Do you look at the competitive position of it? Do you look at the long-term growth? Like what are some of the things that you guys look to kind of pick that ideal location for the dentist to know that, okay, like in the next 5 to 10 years your business is going to make it and it's going to grow? What are some of the things that you guys do in that perspective?
Yeah, we do have internal capabilities to do poll demographics and to be able to share with our clients at no cost. So that can be really helpful to them. And then, getting them connected to industry partners as well that have the ability to do those things, maybe a step further than us if that's necessary. But then also just being in the market I'm here in Michigan, so I'm touring properties day in and day out, looking through the MLS system, seeing what's available, understanding what properties are going for, who's starting up where, who might be relocating. So just working with somebody that fully understands your industry is extremely helpful. I always bring up the example of attorney, for example. Like if you're looking to get a lease drafted for your real estate, you're probably not going to hire a criminal defense attorney to do that. You're going to go to a real estate attorney to help you draft your lease. Similar to what I do. There's real estate agents that specialize in residential and industrial and retail. I specialize in dentistry. Work with people that specialize in your space because they're going to have the best understanding of, one, how your business works, what's important to you, and what you need to be successful. But then two, the local market, who the key players are, where the great spots to be are, where maybe the saturated areas are, the unsaturated areas are, and really help you connect the dots. But I mentioned this before, I'm sure it'll come up multiple times again on this call, but it truly is about building your team. I'm a real estate agent and I feel really confident in helping with that part of the deal. But when it comes to legal or coaching or general contracting or accounting, that's where we pull in the consultants and the general contractors and the attorneys and the CPAs that understand dentistry as well and can join the team to make sure that your dream comes to life, your best interests are protected, and you're set up for success from day one.
That's awesome. That I love that. And then as far as kind of like looking back, I mean, I'm sure you're in the market, as you said, you're in the market, you're dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. Are what are the dentists purchasing more properties, or are they leasing more, or what are some of the strategies that the dentists are using? And what is the benefit from one to another? Is it better to lease the place or rent it out, or is it better just to purchase the property? Are there a lot of property available for purchase? Because as you know, some of these landlords, they're like, well, why am I going to sell my property if I can make money off of it, right? So it's like, what are you seeing in the marketplace right now?
Great question. Every market's different. West Michigan is completely different than Los Angeles, and you can compare any city from there. So, to speak for West Michigan specifically, real estate values here are extremely reasonable. What I mean by that is it's very likely for a private practice, single doctor dentist to own their building at some point. I talked to some of my colleagues in Chicago or LA or even Nashville, and an acre of land is pushing $1 million in those areas, and that's not the case here. So, you know, I always say there isn't a one size fits all. There's not necessarily leasing is better or owning is better. There's pros and cons to both. If you lease your space, obviously you pay monthly rent and the building's taken care of. You replace the roof or the HVAC or deal with different things that you would have to if you own the building. But You might not get as many of the tax advantages or potentially rental income if there's other tenants in the building that you would if you owned it. Whereas on the purchase side, yeah, you might have to deal with the parking lot needs to be repaved or the roof needs to be replaced or the heat went out and you need to tend to that. But you also own an asset that's building equity throughout your career. And ideally, when you close the curtain after growing this incredible business and spending 30, 35, 40 years cash flowing this thing, you have an asset to sell along with your practice. Or maybe you decide, I'm just going to lease this space to whoever buys my practice for 10 more years and cash flow rent for 10 more years and let the building appreciate even more and then sell the building as your final hoorah. So, you know, I wouldn't say there's a right or a wrong answer there. It all kind of comes down to the appetite of the provider, but there are certainly I would argue it's an advantage to own your real estate if that's a possibility for you.
That's awesome. So I know, by talking to some of the dentists, sometimes they want to go in and buy an existing practice, and then they want to like have a practice that already has a cash flow, it's developed. They don't really want to go towards maybe like starting a brand new location because, as you know, it comes with a lot of challenges. So how do you guys help from a perspective of a doctor if they want to go into like an office that the lease is already in place and they're just taking over? Do you guys help with any of that as far as going in? Maybe that doctor already has a 5-year lease, but the new doctor is coming in, buying the business and all of that. Does that give the new doctor the kind of the opportunities to maybe renegotiate the lease? Or how do you guys help with that?
Yeah, we can absolutely get involved in acquisition scenarios. Acquisitions are one of the top transactions that dentists go unrepresented in. And it's typically because these practices get listed for sale as a practice sale, and they make a call to either the doc that currently owns it or the practice broker. But it's a misconception because that practice broker that has that listed for the current doctor has a fiduciary to the selling doc. So they're not looking out for your best interests as the buyer. So they're trying to help the selling doctor sell this practice for the highest purchase price possible. That's their job. Doesn't make them a bad person, but that's what they are hired for. So there's nothing wrong with pulling in your team. I encourage people to pull in a CPA or a consultant that can look under the hood for the practice, make sure that the numbers that they're telling you are accurate. Sometimes you hear horror stories of this is what I thought I was buying, but then I got in there and started searching through the documents and it wasn't necessarily what I thought it was. So I always encourage that before you sign the purchase agreement for the practice. But then secondly, there is another deal going on. There is either a lease or a purchase as well. You know, Typically in scenarios where the selling doc owns the building and they're looking to either lease that space or sell it to you, it is a little bit more of a delicate transaction because you don't want to go in and blow up the deal because they're the owner and ruffle too many feathers. It is a delicate transition. It's a high emotion transition, understandably. But there's a lot of times too where there's a third party landlord or seller of that building. And it's important to negotiate those two transactions simultaneously. You're not closing on the practice before you have the real estate negotiated, because if you close on the practice, your back is immediately up against a wall. That landlord or the selling doc knows, what are you going to do? You're not going to pick up and move that practice up the street. So they have leverage over you at that point. But if you have representation both on the practice sale and the real estate, and you close on those on the same day, you can make those contingent on one another. Like, hey, like we don't have a deal on this practice if we can't come to an agreement on the lease or on the purchase. Like we need to make this make sense from both sides so that doc isn't underwater or upside down on something from day one of taking over.
That's such a fascinating thing that you just mentioned. I think, these are the type of conversation that I really enjoy because these are the type of conversation that nobody ever talks about because we don't even know that this kind of things have to exist or even have to worry about as a dentist sometimes, right? They're like, yeah, just buy the practice, but you don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. I actually was just having a conversation with a doctor that she said she bought the practice. Everything was on essentially paper chart. The doctor, nothing was digital. She bought the practice and went in, and she's like, "Oh my God, what is going on?" Like she didn't know even what she signed herself up for. So I think
Yeah.
that advice that people really need to like kind of look behind the curtain before they buy things is so important because it's such a huge investment that you're making, right? That you don't want to set yourself up for failure right out the gate, especially with that kind of things. So I think that's so important. Does the as far as like when there's an existing doctor in the real estate, when there's a practice, the doctor is there and they want to sell their practice out, does kind of like you said, you want to kind of negotiate both of those, your real estate and the practice at the same time? Does the new doctor that's coming in, do they have any right to renegotiate like the rent? Does the landlord give a pushback and say no, or does the landlord typically are very like cooperative when it comes to that kind of thing? So, like, what are you seeing happening in the market with the landlords when the new doctor comes in?
It varies from scenario to scenario. A lot of times, if there is forethought, let's say selling doc is in a lease space. They may have renewed their lease for 10 years when they knew that they were looking to sell 3 years down the line. In those cases, typically, they'll put a lease assignment in their lease so that when they do sell their practice, they can just assign that lease to whoever buys it. In those scenarios, especially if it's like that example where there's 7 years left, it is challenging to go in and renegotiate terms. But I will say, there's been multiple situations where selling doc is obviously selling their practice, and then there's like 2 or 3 years left in the lease. It's a lot easier for us to go in and say, hey, we want a new deal. Like we're willing to come in, they're gonna buy this practice and we're gonna structure a new 10-year deal. And landlords, again, it's situational, but in those scenarios, oftentimes they're thinking long term. They can say, well, I can say no, and this person might not buy this practice, and this lease is going to expire in 3 years. Or I could say yes, and I'm securing a tenant for 10 more years with a couple of 5-year options. So I would argue that most landlords are sophisticated and are thinking long term. They're thinking profitability just like I am and you are and all the listeners are as well. But it's all about just having the right posture and making sure that we're looking out for the best interest of the doctor. So in one point as well, a lot of times the lenders, when they're giving a loan to a buyer to buy a practice, want to see multiple years of term on the lease. So that's leverage in and of itself. If we go in and they're like, yeah, I'm going to give you a 10-year or a 6-year loan for this practice, they want to know that there's going to be 6 years of lease term so that they got the security of the loan. So in those situations, it's easy to go to the landlord and say, hey, 3 years isn't going to work for my doc to buy this practice. We need to have at least 6 in order to get the lender to approve this loan.
Wow, that's it's so fascinating how much goes into dentistry, man. Because when you look at it, you're like, it's just dentistry. But then when you think about the business side of it, how much goes into it, it's just absolutely mind blowing. That what a what a huge and giant of an industry it is when it comes to doing business and all that. It's absolutely insane. Um,
Absolutely.
as far as for example, like you mentioned, I want to kind of just want to know like what your thought is because I heard a lot of the doctors, not a lot of doctors, but I hear a lot of people are saying like practicing dentistry in rural area is much easier, the real estate is much easier, the laws are much easier, like getting the real estate is much easier. Do you really believe that practicing in the rural area for doctors are easier as far as like those kind of things, or do you think it's just because of the demand of the dentistry? Do you like, for example, if I'm practicing in middle of Iowa, is doing a real estate much easier than me being in Nashville? Like, what are you seeing in the market when it comes to that?
That's a great question. As far as the real estate goes, typically the land or the building is less valuable than your highly populated areas. So, there is an opportunity to get a parcel of land or buy a building at a cheaper cost than you would in the city. One of the challenges that comes up with rural areas is having alternative options, creating that posture, and the negotiations to get the concessions you need. It's a lot harder in the middle of Iowa to say, yeah, we got four more properties within a 3 mile radius that we're looking at. The inventory there probably isn't as high as Chicago, where you can throw a rock at five options from wherever you're standing. So, you know, I think there's definitely opportunity to save money and get a better deal in those rural areas. And then also, there's just different challenges that come with it. But from what I hear, it seems that it's becoming pretty popular for new startups or acquisitions to go out to the rural areas. A lot of times, just due to the way that businesses are set up, there's not a dentist every single mile like there might be in the city. So you're pulling a lot more people to your practice. People are traveling maybe 30, 45 minutes to come see you, whereas when you're downtown Los Angeles, you're pulling from maybe a mile around you because there's five other general dentists as well. So, again, I feel bad because I'm not giving you like super straightforward answers, but it is just kind of situational. It depends on what else is happening in the market at that time. What other options do we have? But if I were to give a blanket statement, yes, I would say real estate values are lower in those areas, making it just a little bit more feasible to own in those situations.
That is awesome. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I believe, any conversation I always have is like, yeah, rural area is better because the real estate is cheaper and things are a little bit easier to deal with and make it happen and things like that. That's just kind of what the thought process. I mean, when I was in Nashville and I was practicing at an office downtown Nashville, I mean, the rent for the building was like almost $50,000 a month, and then you talk to another doctor, it was out probably half an hour's outside the town, and their rent was like for same space was probably like $6,000 cheaper. You're
Yeah.
like, wow, that's crazy. Like what a difference it makes into the spacing. But how does Kyle? The one thing I want to know, how is the like when this real when the owner of the building want to kind of determine the price of the rent for that property, how do they really determine that? Because for residential is easy, right? They look at their area and they're like, this is how much we're gonna charge. How do they determine the pricing for the commercial or real estate?
Yeah, it's very similar to residential. They're looking at comps in their area, understanding what the market is, and probably inflating a little bit. Landlords are never listing properties. Same with sellers. You're never listing your house for the price that you're willing to take. You're expecting that somebody's probably going to come in and negotiate with you. Landlords are doing the exact same thing. So they're evaluating the surrounding market. What other buildings have vacant spaces? How does my building compare to somebody else's? Are there things that are better? Maybe there's things that are worse. We need to make adjustments to that price per square foot. And then also, what condition is the space in? If it's a second gen dental office that's in pretty good condition, where somebody can come in and lease it and do little to no renovations in order to start practicing, it's probably worth paying a premium, you know, rather than spending four, five, $600,000 on an interior build out. You just pay a couple more bucks a foot in rent, and it is a pretty fair trade off. And I feel that premium is justified. But in scenarios where it's maybe there wasn't a tenant in there before, or maybe they deconstructed whoever was in that building before and left it kind of like a white box, you know, that landlord might be more willing to give concessions, knowing that when a tenant comes in looking to negotiate a deal, that they're going to have to do a large interior build out. And ideally, we're getting the landlord to contribute some tenant improvement allowance into that deal to mitigate those costs.
That's amazing. So, Kyle, give us this is just for me to know. So, what is the average rent right now for like dental practices? Like, if they're leasing, what are you seeing in the marketplace as far as like the like the leases go? Like, what are they a month? Like, let's say Michigan in compared to like Nashville, like what's the average right now that the dentists are paying for their like leases?
That's a great question. It's kind of challenging for me to answer because I am only licensed in Michigan. We'd have to pull some data from some of my partners in other states in order to get a better answer on that. But just to speak here, in Michigan, I think, for office space, so buildings that might be a little bit further off the road and have a common area that you go in and there's multiple other tenants, anywhere between $14 and $18 per square foot. Whereas a retail space, you're typically paying a little bit of a premium for that visibility to the road and the signage and the large parking lot and the synergy with other tenants. And I would say between 18 and $22 a square foot here in Michigan.
Yeah, that's not too bad at all. That's pretty good, man. Maybe I should move to Michigan.
It's a great place to do business. Just got to deal with the snow if you move here.
Well, I grew up in New York City, so there's no don't
Oh, there you
bother me.
go. Yeah, you're very familiar
But
then.
oh yeah, I know. No, man. I love Michigan. I had a lot of classmates that were from Michigan. I think Michigan it's a beautiful place. One of our friend Brandy, she moved to Michigan too. She says she likes it. She
Yeah.
said it's pretty cool. So I'm like, all right, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an underrated state, I would say. You go overseas and you ask somebody to name some states, and Michigan's probably never on the list. But if you come here though, it is gorgeous. I mean, the Great Lakes are awesome. There's so much nature and things to see, things to do. It's safe. I guess this is my Michigan sales pitch, but
Yeah. Let's get out of dentistry and talk about state of Michigan, huh?
yeah,
Top 10 reason to move to Michigan.
yeah, exactly.
No, man, I think Michigan is pretty diverse because I had a couple of, I'm originally from Iran. So I had a couple of classmates that were from Iraq, and they're like, it's all like, there's a lot of Middle Easterns in Michigan. So they were always telling me, they're like, if you want, you got to go to Michigan. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
we'll see. But no, I love it. Well, Carl, I want to ask you one final question before I do let you go. My
cool.
goal with my podcast is really, I mean, with everything that I'm doing with Dent Man, I really want to, I want to empower and educate the doctors that is coming. Kind of they're coming up, they're graduating dental school. They're year, 2 year, 3 years out. What is like one, like really, really, like what is one advice that you can give them as somebody that is in the field, that is doing it and doing it the right way? What is like your advice for them if they want to go out, either purchase their own building or they want to lease? What is like your advice for them? Because if this is their first time doing it, what are some of the things that you want to like tell them, hey, do this, do that, don't do this, do that. Like just give us some kind of advice for them to kind of look out for, things to look out for. You know, do they need to hire you guys, when they should hire you guys? So it's just like give us some pro tips so that way they can maneuver the industry a little bit better.
Yeah, I think you'll like this, and it's very aligned to what you're looking to do here. But and it's already come up a couple of times, and I'm going to say it again. But my biggest advice, and the biggest thing I see with successful dental practices is the doctor's ability to network and build a team of advisors that are experts within their space and their industry to help them grow. You focus on your clinical work and being a fantastic dentist that you are, and ask for help. Pull people in that know how to negotiate real estate deals, that know how to protect you legally, that know how to do your accounting, that know how to coach and advise your team and help you set up the right culture. Use people within the industry that are experts in your space to take care of that stuff for you so that you can focus on what you love to do, which is your clinical work. It's unfortunate to see sometimes, different providers that try to do things on their own because maybe they just have misconceptions or they just don't understand the pitfalls of what they're getting themselves into. But there really is a huge opportunity for you and your business by partnering with the right people. On the real estate side, I'll speak to that exactly. On average, we save dentists tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in their real estate negotiation. I've been a part of situations where I've saved a doctor $50,000 on their term. I've also saved a doctor $600,000 on their term. And that's always what I ask. Why not partner with? We're a free service. We're there to look out for your best interests, make sure that you're protected in the deal. And at the very least, if we don't save you anything, you at least have the peace of mind in knowing that you had the proper representation and you got the best deal possible. So it's all about people. It's all about relationships, humbling yourself, learning, partnering with people that are confident in what they do and are going to look out for your best interest to help you grow your practice.
That is absolutely it. That's you couldn't have said it any better. That's so important because I see even now I see so many dentists that are just we are dentists, right? We're good, like you said, we do the dentistry. Some of us, some are good in business. They have that business mindset. They want to push themselves forward. They try to learn things, right? We are essentially, we've been a student our whole life, right? We went to school. We want to become a student when we get out to learn the business in whatever way that we can, right? But I always tell them, I see so many dentists that, like you said, they just drag themselves along trying to do everything on their own. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, just hire somebody to do it for you. The kind of the return that you're going to get on that investment and the peace of mind that you have is just so much better than just trying to I'm going to just do this because I want to, but then you had the roadblock and then you got to reset the whole clock, start all over again. I even see some doctor trying to do their own credentialing. I'm like, for the love of God, please don't don't do this. 3 months later, they're like, yeah, this one didn't go through. That one didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's just like so many things that I'm like, man, just yeah. I mean, like I said, that the advice is great because I think it's important that we utilize, especially with technology now, right? It's just how much it's helping us learn and understand where we need to be at. There are times that I'm like, give Chat GPT, hey, what do I need to do to kind of become effective at these things? And it gives you like breakdowns. So I always tell people utilize what you have, utilize the things that you have, find the people, create the team around you that can help you get there. I can, you know, even myself, like as I'm building Dent Man platform, like I have to hire so many people to do so many things because I'm like, I can't be doing dentistry and doing everything else. I'm never gonna get anywhere because it's
Right.
like you have to give people the task of what they're good at, right? We're good at dentistry. Let somebody else do the real estate, somebody else do the accounting and things like that. Well, that was my final question, but I'm gonna ask you one more: is how is the in your word, how's the technology with the AI and stuff? How is that helping? Is that helping you guys improve certain processes? Are there any improvement as far as like putting the doctors in a better position with the AI? How's the AI helping you guys in your field?
Yeah, that is a great question, and it's a topic that I feel like I'm just scratching the surface with, which maybe is a common feeling amongst people. But yeah, I mean, I learn something new every day using AI. From marketing to, I mean, you can ask AI to role play a negotiation with you. So there's been times where I'm like going into a call and I'm like, I think that I got this down, but hold on, let's just see what Chat GPT would say. And it's sick, like you never know. It's typically not the scenario that comes up, but like, shoot, why not? I might learn something. And so, there's so many different things, or even going on there and, just for myself, like I can find doctors that are in lease spaces for business development on my own, go stop by and just try and inform them of what they might not know with their upcoming lease renewal or the opportunity they have to purchase once their lease is up. I'm sure there's so many different other things that you can do from property searches and things like that within it. Uh, but yeah, absolutely, it is transforming the industry across the board. I think AI is the future, whether people like it or not. I was given advice, I'm sometimes embarrassed to say, not that long ago, in the past couple of years, like if you're not using AI, you're behind. There's so much that people are doing with it. So if you're not a part of it, there's somebody else that is. So you might as well embrace it and figure out how it works and play with it, play around with it, and see what other ways you might be able to help your business move forward. Hopefully that
Absolutely.
answers your question.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. We were just I was talking to my co-founder Masood last night, and he said one of his friends sent him a text because he's in all the AI stuff. He develops like he's the CEO of Alo Ai, so they develop like receptionists for all dental offices and all that. And he made a joke. He's like, somebody told me make sure you don't get an AI girlfriend. We're like cracking up over that. I hope we don't go down to those avenues.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen.
Hey, if that's the case, I'll give AI all my detail of what I'm looking for. Maybe we'll give him my ideal woman.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Hey, that's awesome. Well, Carl, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you hopping on here. We had so much fun. Me and you're so open to conversation, man. I really, truly admire that about you. It's like every time I text you, we have a conversation outside the podcast. You're so open to having that conversation and just kind of coming on here and really doing, because for me, what's important is what can we do to empower the dentists, and you guys are doing it at your organization, and I enjoy that so much. I can't wait to get more educated by you guys, hopefully work with you guys soon, and then bring more dentists to your organization so that they can get the help that they need, so they don't have to drag themselves along in the journey. So I truly appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for hopping on today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I love what you're doing too. I fully believe in the mission that you have, and so excited to be a part of this. And I look forward to the growth that you're going to have here soon.
Thank you so much, Carl. I really appreciate it, man. Have a good one. See you next time.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.